Hi, everybody. Thank you for waiting. I'm Judy, and this is Remy.
Good
Thank you for
evening.
being here.
Thank you. Sorry we were late. Technical difficulties
Yeah,
from somebody who's been doing IT for over 20 years. You would expect that wouldn't be the case, but thanks, Judy, for your patience. And thanks
sure.
to everyone for waiting for us to be 12 minutes late, or for me
That's
to be
right.
12 minutes late.
Well, it's just an important topic to those of us who are really following the Dan Markel case. Is we want to show what kind of person Dan Markel was. He's more than just a murder victim, a law professor who was shot in July 2014. And there have been some slightly negative comments about him made by commenters on YouTube, although we don't know if those are just fake comments or people just trying to get attention or whether they really knew Dan or not. But we would like to read some more memories about him tonight. So, you ready to get started, Remy?
I am indeed.
Okay, so you can go ahead.
Shall we start with Remembering Dan Markel by Orin Kerr? And this was written on July 22nd of 2014 at 1:27 a.m. in the morning.
Mhm.
Ilya earlier noted the death of FSU law professor Dan Markel, who was shot in his home in circumstances that remain frustratingly unclear, but now look like an intentional homicide. I originally planned not to post a remembrance, as many others have done so, and I wasn't sure I could add anything new. But I now think that there's no harm and perhaps some good in the possible repetition implicit in this sort of writing. So here are some fond recollections of my friend Dan.
I first came to know Dan around 2002 when he moved to DC to practice law at Kellogg Huber, and I was in my second year of teaching at GW. We had a ton in common and became friends, hanging out socially and often commenting on each other's articles and ideas. Dan left DC in 2005 to teach at Florida State, and we then kept in touch mostly by seeing each other at conferences. I last spent a lot of time with him 2 summers ago when we sat next to each other at a conference for a full week. And I last communicated with him just 2 weeks ago when we were messaging over Facebook about a blog post he had written.
To me, the most remarkable part of Dan as a person was that he was so happy bringing people together. If you walked into a room and Dan was there talking to someone, he would invariably wave you over, say, "Hey, buddy," and introduce you to the people he was speaking with. He was delighted to help others make connections. He was always the guy who organized the happy hours and made sure new people met more senior scholars. If you were a new professor who didn't know anyone at a conference, Dan would take you under his wing and introduce you to everybody. He wanted everyone to schmooze and click with the rest of the group. The less comfortable a person felt, the more efforts Dan would make.
Dan also stood out for the intensity and seriousness with which he took his work. Some law professors are smart people who wrote a few articles, got their foot in the door, but along the way lost their interest in ideas. Not Dan. Dan was passionate about his ideas, and he thought deeply about what he was saying and why. At that summer conference 2 years ago, Dan and I spent about an hour debating whether it is better for new scholars to start their careers by joining pre existing conversations or trying to start new conversations. I argued that the better strategy was to start a new conversation, more likely to lead to a unique contribution. Dan believed that the best strategy was to join a pre existing conversation, more likely that the scholar will focus on something serious and important. It's the kind of academic topic that even a lot of law professors consider just navel gazing. But to Dan, it was a hugely important issue as it raised fundamental questions about what law professors should be doing and why.
Dan was also one of the most stubborn people I knew. He would get ideas in his head about the way the world should be. And darn it, that was the way the world should be. This no doubt annoyed some people, but it was also his most endearing quality. Sure, you could roll your eyes and laugh at Dan's eccentric reaction to this or that, but you always knew that when you talked with Dan, he was telling you exactly what he was thinking. Dan wasn't timid or cautious. He was completely open and unfiltered about what was on his mind. Witness Dan's involvement with the Federalist Society, despite himself being very liberal. To him, it didn't matter that he was an ideological outlier. He was in it for the ideas, and he was going to tell you exactly what he thought.
Anyway, I'm sure these limited thoughts can't do justice to Dan, so I'll conclude by linking to my 3 favorite remembrances of Dan that other friends of his have posted. Each captures different aspects of Dan, and each is a wonderful tribute to him. First, here's Dave Hoffman at Co-op. Next, here's David Latt at ATL. And finally, here's Abigail Schreier in the Jewish Journal. Dan, buddy, I'll miss you. Okay.
Those are some links that you were reading off the.
Yeah. Unfortunately, some of those links didn't work. So, okay. So you ready to read the more memories?
Definitely.
Okay. Go ahead.
From the AboveTheLaw.com website, more memories of Professor Dan Markel. Former classmates, teachers, and students of Dan Markel remember this late, great law professor. By David Latt on July 22nd, 2014 at 4:19 p.m. No major breaks have been announced in the investigation of the tragic death of Professor Dan Markel. Law enforcement authorities have not publicly identified any suspects. Dan's former wife, Wendi Adelson, is working with the police and is both devastated at his loss and fearful for herself and their children, according to her lawyer. We extend our condolences and sympathies to her and to all of Dan's family and friends at this time.
Until there are further developments in the case, let's focus on Dan's life rather than his death. I shared some of my own memories of Dan yesterday. Here are additional recollections of Dan from around the country. And we'll probably have to just scroll down to where we can actually read it because a lot of these links no longer work. So maybe we will just go down to where it says Professor David Wilkins. Mm-hmm. Would you like to go ahead?
Yes. Actually, I don't see that. Can you start?
Oh, it says number 4. Okay. Professor David Wilkins of Harvard Law School, who taught and mentored Dan, sent us this tribute.
I got it. This is really breaking my heart. I've known Dan since he was a first-year student, was one of his references when he went on the teaching market, and for various other academic positions and honors. I kept in touch with Dan, or more accurately, Dan kept in touch with me through the years, telling me about his wedding, the birth of his children, and his many professional achievements. Dan was a person of enormous energy, intelligence, and perhaps most of all, great personal warmth. He never failed to cheerfully inquire about how things were going with me, even when things were more difficult for him than they should have been. Although I'm embarrassed to say, I didn't know how difficult until reading your post. I will miss him greatly, as will so many others whose lives he touched over the years, as is clear from the outpouring of remembrances that you have collected. Unlike many academics, Dan loved people as much as he loved ideas. But most of all, he loved sharing his ideas with other people, even if they disagreed. My memory of these shared conversations will stay with me always. You're on mute, Judy. Happens to the best of us.
Okay, sorry about that. The next one is Ryan Witt. Okay, I'm toggling between different tabs here. A former student of Dan's who is now at Boyce Schiller in Miami emailed us this account. I can definitely tell that Dan was tough. We had a few run-ins back when I was his student. One quick story. Once, early in the semester, while the class was engaged in a discussion about something, I turned around to ask a classmate where we were, but Dan called my name, Witt. We had to use Mr. or Ms. in his class. And I proceeded to contribute to the discussion without skipping a beat. When I finished my answer, he looked at me and said, "I was trying to tell you to be quiet, not to respond."
A few days later, I think I was 5 minutes late, he called me out in front of the class and made me wait until the class took a mid-morning break before I came back. Worrying that he perceived me as a goof-off, I wanted to earn his respect. As part of the class, we were required to post on a discussion board about different aspects of criminal law. I took the opportunity to write a short essay about the drawbacks of shaming punishments, particularly in small group settings, and cited to one of Dan's articles. About 10 minutes after he read it, he sent the class a short apology. I think it was one of the most validating experiences of my first year. We obviously buried the hatchet quickly, and he was always on my visitation list when I found myself in Tallahassee after graduating. His death really is a tragedy.
Okay, next one is by Ryan Weschler. Another former student of Dan's shared these words with us. "You know, they say never be late with a cup of coffee in your hand. 2 seconds prior, I had stumbled through the door of Professor Markel's criminal procedure adjudication class, thermos in hand, 1 or 2 minutes late. The door to our classroom was noisy, and the audience was limited to about 10, so all eyes were on me as I abruptly broke through. Under Markel's scrutiny, I immediately blurted my excuse: traffic. My excuse was true, but illegitimate, as Markel's immediate and witty rebuttal proved. I should have skipped making coffee."
That's how Professor Markel was. He was brutally honest and impressively assertive. For those reasons, I think a lot of students misunderstood him, but it was for those reasons, along with countless others, that I admired him. And more pertinently, he is one of the best teachers I've ever had, if not the very best.
He made me smarter. All law professors make their students smarter, sure, but there was something special about Markel. He challenged me. He challenged me to think outside the box and into a whole new realm on a topic, criminal law, that I have always had a bit of a knack and even more passion for. I was a frequent contributor in both classes I took with him at FSU Law, and because of him, I grew intellectually every time I raised my hand. He would put me on the spot and unpack my thought process like no professor ever has. Going back and forth with him were the greatest moments of learning that I recall ever experiencing. I can elaborate a lot on it, but I'll be blunt. Markel taught me how to think on a higher level.
There are plenty of great things I can say about Professor Markel. I was fortunate enough to develop a rather close relationship with him over the past 2 years. I have always been proud to call him a mentor because that's precisely what he was to me, whether he would have accepted that title or not. Last fall, I received an offer for publication in a specialty journal, and he was one of the first people I told. I specifically remember how eager and excited I was to tell him. It's revealing to me of how strongly I regarded him. He was someone I always wanted to impress. I really looked up to him.
So did we all. Rest in peace, Dan. Baruch Dayan Emmet. Okay. So we're going to switch over to the Justice for Dan website, which maybe not a lot of people know about, but there's actually some good information there. It doesn't seem like it's being updated a lot, but there are some essays there from Dan's friends. So I'm going to try to show that also on the screen, or at least a picture of it. So here it is, the Justice for Dan website, where it says remembering Danny on his 50th birthday. Okay, you want to go ahead?
It's a beautiful picture.
Mm-hmm.
Remembering Danny on his 50th birthday. Today, on what would have been Dan's 50th birthday, we honor his memory by sharing the thoughts of those whose lives he touched. Here are the words shared at his 2014 memorials by Dan's rabbi, Shoal Robinson, his very oldest friend, Mitch Bellum, his dear high school friend, Avery Kohlers, his dear law school friend, Tamara Demco. Please join these with your own and tag hashtag Dan Markel, hashtag Justice for Dan Markel.
Rabbi Shoal Robinson, members of the family, this is the most heartbreakingly sad day for all of us. Having listened to all the beautiful tributes that have already been paid, I realize that I have nothing new to add. It has all been said. We have heard what a friend, a mensch Dan was, how he loved people and created this unique sense of love and friendship wherever he went. I'm proud to say that Dan was a close friend, but I've realized that that is a statement that hundreds of people can make with complete sincerity.
But I think the very fact that we have all said the same thing today reinforces what a unique person Dan was. We all know people. We do this all the time, where we are one person with a family, another kind of person at work, someone completely different with college friends, as we are with new friends. That wasn't Dan at all. Wherever he went, whatever circle he was in, he was the same mensch. The sages speak of the importance of being, don't want to attempt this. I know I'll slaughter it.
Somebody can read it themselves.
Consistent. The same on the inside as on the outside. That was Dan. I knew Dan because I was his rabbi at Cambridge University in England when Dan was there for 2 years. I officiated at his wedding, and entirely thanks to Dan's gifts for friendship, we remained close until this day.
I'm really here today because I feel a tremendous sense of hakarat hatov, gratitude to Dan. When I met Dan, I had just started my rabbinical career. I had been the rabbi at Cambridge for just a few weeks when we met. I, of course, was very uncertain and very much in awe and feeling completely out of my depth and unsure of myself. And sometime during that year, Dan sent me an email. I so wish I had kept it, but I remember it almost verbatim. And it was the most incredibly encouraging email. Dan laid out what he thought I was good at, pointed out my strengths and capabilities, and was so positive and upbeat. I have never again received another email like that. And from that day on, I had a real sense that I can do this, and I will be forever grateful to him.
There is a phrase we use in our liturgy. It comes from the Bible, an adjective to describe the personality of the biblical Daniel. Daniel Ish Chamudot. Sorry for anyone that knows that I probably mispronounced that. Daniel, the beloved man, the man of pleasantness, affection, love, and that was Dan.
We have already heard what an incredible connector he was. The outpouring of comments this week on so many blogs and Facebook are testament to that. And in reading these comments, I'm struck with amazement. I never knew that the human heart could be so vast, large enough to contain so much room for so many people.
Dan was so very smart and so accomplished. He worked so hard on his legal scholarship. And when he was awarded tenure, he was so happy and proud of his accomplishments. And of course, he devoted so much time to his family. And whenever I look at those beautiful pictures he used to post of his beautiful Ben and Lincoln, you can see the love and the adoration he had for them and how playful and fun he was as a father.
And even after all that dedication and that love, he still had time for us, for me, who happened to have been his rabbi nearly 20 years ago, and for countless others. He found the time, he made the time to be this unique-ish chamudot, funny, wise, talented, engaged, caring, encouraging, wry, silly, and utterly loyal and steadfast friend.
And I wonder, really marvel, how he was able to find so much time to devote so much of his heart to so many people. From time to time, Dan and I would discuss religion, would discuss religious, spiritual matters. Dan loved Judaism, Israel, the Jewish people. He learned a lot of spiritual lessons during the breakup of his marriage. He wanted so much for the boys to have the same love of Judaism as he had. It was so important to him. My heart broke over and over again as he revealed to me some of the struggles he was going through. And he always felt that if only he showed more goodwill, more patience, all would be well.
After his divorce, we had a long conversation where he explained to me some of the things he felt rabbis should know about what it was that he had been through. But Dan wanted so much to love and had so much love to give and was so happy that he had found someone and was creating a loving relationship again.
The love here in this room today is palpable. The tributes have all been so moving. I feel so unexpectedly uplifted. But I want to confess that I have another emotion that I want to express today, and that is anger. And I want to say to this monster, whoever you are, quote, how dare you? How dare you take our Dan away from his parents and from his children and from all of us, end quote. With every fiber of my soul, I pray that those guilty of this obscene crime be swiftly brought to justice and punished and made to understand this evil thing that they have done, this world they have destroyed.
In our tradition, it strikes me that we have two different ways of imagining, describing the soul's experience in Olam Haba, the world to come. We speak in the El Malarakimim prayer of the soul having manucha nachona, a proper rest. In English, we use the expression rest in peace.
But Dan did not want to rest. He did not need to rest. His rest has come far too soon. But there is comfort in our faith that the soul enjoys bliss and peace in the world to come. I'm sure Dan would have appreciated the Maimonidean idea that the world to come is cerebral, is a cerebral contemplative experience, an eternal accumulation of knowledge and understanding.
But as well as rest, we have another aspiration for the soul. We say, may the neshama have an aliyah. May the soul rise higher and higher, stronger and stronger. When the good deeds, the seeds that a person plants in his lifetime, blossom, when his children mature and reach adulthood, when Dan's influence on all of us, as so many speakers have so beautifully expressed, changes us, makes us, as Dan was, more caring, more loving, more thoughtful, bigger benches. Then Dan's soul rises higher and higher, stronger and stronger, more and more a force for good in this world.
Dan, we love you and we will miss you forever.
Okay, the next one is a speech made by Mitchell Bellman. Who don't know me, my name is Mitchell Bellman. I'm lucky to have known Dan for a long, long time. In fact, I have the distinction of being Danny's oldest friend, or so he liked to tell me. Because no matter how far away he lived or how long between visits, we were always able to be incredibly direct with one another to cut out the hyperbole.
We first met at summer camp around 30 years ago and became fast friends. Unlike the pledges made to so many other camp friends, we actually did keep in touch in the city. Our sisters were friends, and eventually our parents as well. Our families both had places up in Thornbury, so through our adolescence, we got to spend lots of time together.
We had a great community of people up north, spending weekends and holidays with a core group of families. Sometimes it was movie night. Other times we'd play games. Danny developed a reputation for being unbeatable at Trivial Pursuit. How could he be so good, we wondered. Then one day we saw him bringing a stack of cards out of the bathroom. Case closed.
Danny and I both liked to be active. In the summer, we'd play tennis, go swimming, and for bike rides. In the wintertime, there was skiing. At 14 years of age, we were lucky enough to go on a trip with our fathers to Aspen. We felt like men out in the big mountains. We were so exhausted at the end of each day. I think we were asleep by 8 p.m. on most nights.
For a time, we worked together. We worked during the summer or on weekends doing shipping and receiving at Asta Fashions, Phil's business at the time. Unpacking boxes full of merchandise was not the most exciting or intellectually stimulating job ever, but being there with Danny was always fun. We would often talk at length like SNL characters Hans and Franz as we ripped open the plastic packaging protecting the clothing. Neck, shoulders, abdomen, fleep.
Back in those days, Ruth would call us her, quote, young boys of America, end quote. We would go to the movies, read magazines, or spend time looking for rare CDs at Ed's Record World. I was lucky to spend time with Danny's family regularly, and I learned that he had a nickname that just would not go away, Bozo, or more affectionately, Bo. I think it was a name just for his family to use, but I adopted it as my own. I never asked him if this was what gave him the motivation to go to Harvard or not.
As we got older, of course we matured, but Danny never lost his joy de vivre. Sorry, I've never really pronounced that before. He laughed when I called Harvard's America's McGill. In the early days of email, he would write regularly and wax poetic about every detail of his Shabbat meal. At my wedding, he danced as if nobody was watching. He would always greet me with a smile, a hug, and we'd sit around and talk for hours about life, love, and possibilities for the future.
He had a zest for life, was a true romantic, and a dear friend. Bozo, you will be greatly missed.
The next one is by Avery Kohlers. My name is Avery Kohlers. I got to know Dan in the second half of high school at Forest Hill. Dan wasn't like other people. He had these broad horizons. He knew about stuff and read about it and cared about it and wondered about it. At the time, I was all Blue Jays and Bruce Springsteen. Dan would say, "You want to go out and hear some jazz tonight?" I'm pretty sure no one had ever said that to me before. And I'm all, "Sure," as if I do this every day. And then Dan says, "Great, I think I'll go read for an hour or so and then I'll call you." And no one had ever said that to me before either. Consequently, I learned so much from him. things great and small. I learned from him how to be interested in stuff.
Dan brought his friends along on an intellectual adventure. And I should say about the people who got to know through Dan, too. They were smart but unpretentious. People who could have a conversation that was simultaneously serious and funny. Dan was the keystone, the one whose questions and observations started us going, and whose jokes or humorous asides would keep the tone light and the pace fast. Every idea was open for irreverent examination, not because it didn't matter, but precisely because it did.
Irreverent was Dan's word for this attitude, but I think the irreverence was just a symptom of a basic humaneness about his approach to the world around him. Humaneness is when your world is at once both big and small. It's big because your concern and affection extend to all the four corners and backwards and forwards in time. Yet it's small because you're focused on this particular person you're with, right here, right now. Dan once referred to this as a love of the present moment. That was Dan's world. It was at once the biggest world there is and the smallest.
When I think of the many, many ways Dan influenced me, things as silly as insisting on tomato in your grilled cheese and crying, quote, injustice, quote, if it should be served without, and as profound as his retributivist theory of punishment, what I hope most to learn from him now is that humaneness.
The next one is by Tamara Demco. Many have wondered why Dan Markel was so special, why his friends in New York, Boston, Florida, across the nation and globe have been so particularly grieved by his loss, having already organized multiple memorials, memorial funds, and even walks in his name.
It's taken me some time to find the words I've wanted to say. I'm sharing this publicly for people to know who Danny was, although it is quite personal to me, and to share this with his other friends who loved him dearly.
Danny was one of my best and oldest friends, close from our first week of Harvard Law School to the last several years, both living in Tallahassee. He was my classmate, my waltz partner, my constant, my advisor, my confidant, my dear friend. We shared past, present, and future. I love him, and I always will.
Many have spoken of Danny. He was indeed a prolific writer, a brilliant mind, an innovative scholar, professor, mensch, and friend who was devoted to his family and faith community in every way. His contributions to the legal and academic communities are well documented in more than 30 published articles, in his writings and commentaries on Prof's blog, and in the minds and hearts of the countless colleagues and students he inspired and influenced over the years, whether as a resident tutor at Lowell House during Harvard Law School days, a traveling fellow and scholar, or a full professor of law at Florida State University in Tallahassee.
There has been a tremendous outpouring of grief, love, and support from friends, family, colleagues, students, and communities, not just in Tallahassee where he lived, in New York where he often traveled, or at Harvard where he attended college and law school, but from across the nation and around the world. From formal memorial services to gatherings of remembrance, people have spoken this past week and will continue to speak of his life and how he personally touched and changed their lives.
Why? How could one man have such an impact on so many? He was not an actor, politician, or preacher. How could so many feel his loss so deeply? While no words can ever hope to fully capture him, so many stories provide wonderful glimpses of him. I knew Danny's heart, and so I will start by talking about his boys.
He had a dozen nicknames and terms of endearment for those he loved, most especially for Benjamin and Lincoln, who were Ben and Linky, Ben and Linkabus, Cubby and Dewey, the little bears, the delicious ones, little love balls of light, his wonder balls, and the magical ones. They were indeed magical to him, for he was in awe of them in every moment. They opened his eyes and heart to life and love in an even deeper way. As a Cohen in the priestly line, he loved teaching them about Judaism, faith, tradition, ritual, songs, and the importance of community, going to synagogue, holy days, and Shabbat dinner as a family, and with his extended family of friends.
He was a shamelessly proud and involved Abba. From before birth through bris, learning Hebrew, swimming, bike riding, preschool, taking them to shul, and celebrating holidays, and every single moment in between, Danny glowed with love and pride in his boys. As someone who appreciated fine art, Danny found no art better than that of his sons, and their artwork was frequently displayed throughout his house. As a lover of classical music, jazz, and even more eclectic alternative music, Danny found no sound sweeter than his boys singing songs of Jewish faith. I now treasure a video Danny sent me one night as we were texting of him singing with the boys as they were getting ready for bed.
Whenever he could, often daily, he would go to preschool just to share snack time with the boys. He was simply one of the best fathers, if not the best dad you will ever meet. Jewish or not, if you were within traveling radius and Shabbat dinner or any dinner was to be had, you were invited to join Danny. If dinner was at his house, you were always encouraged to explore the entire contents of his refrigerator and pantry for additional treats. If Danny came to your house, he was sure to have you laughing and sharing stories in moments.
I'm so grateful to Danny's friends for the beautiful stories that they have shared that can now be collected for his boys, to the hundreds of people who have donated to their fund in Danny's memory, to so many who have personally reached out to me to share memories. Every story shines a little more life and light into Danny's very present memory. Despite very diverse circles of friends across the world, he managed to be there for his friends. In the last week, he has been referred to as the Great Connector, an internet before there was internet. He has also been referred to as the Kevin Bacon of legal academics, and as the Johnny Carson of academics, inviting you to the stage and then encouraging and inspiring you to reach new personal levels. He has been called a collector of people, the kind of friend who you cannot speak to in years, and in a moment of contact, you picked up exactly where you left off. He was quick to foster your potential, to challenge you towards your best, to support you in the best and worst of times. He would drop everything to write a recommendation for a student on short notice. He took the time to share meals and outings with his students, to learn about their hopes and dreams.
He was a seeker of truth and justice, an exceedingly insightful man, unafraid to hear and believe the hardest of truths, unafraid to tell you what he was thinking, unafraid to love and support his friends, unafraid to show emotion. He was truly a man of wisdom and discernment. Friends have recounted when they met Danny. He did not beat around the bush, but went into meeting someone with a confident assumption that you would be great friends, and that, as such, it was his place and duty to learn the most important personal things about you within minutes of meeting you. Many friends have laughed, describing how this felt odd when Danny would learn about your family and dating history upon meeting you, but they quickly realized that was just a part of who Danny was. He truly cared about you. He was fully present whenever he was with you. And that quick level of intimacy he so easily achieved led to deep personal connections and diverse circles of friends.
That he had 100 best friends was true. He opened his home and kitchen to friends regularly. He went to the gym regularly. He was a keen observer of fashion, often providing helpful hints and delivering, with a playful smirk, amusing comments at his friends' choice of clothing over the years. He recently noted that I had worn the same jeans 2 weeks earlier. I had absolutely no idea that I had. He was able to give constructive critique and disagree on fine points with friends and colleagues alike, and yet still managed to remain a friend.
Danny was unforgettable. His third grade girl. Should I go ahead?
Go ahead,
Are you
sorry.
there? Oh, okay. Yeah, I think there's some lag time or something. Okay. Danny was unforgettable. His third grade girlfriend wrote me to say how she still has stickers he gave her. A law school classmate wrote to me to say that despite only talking to Dan once or twice a year, Danny's death was hitting him very hard. He recalled to me how he remembered Danny and I becoming instant friends our first week of law school, saying, quote, "You were like two pieces of the same puzzle, finally reunited," unquote. After 17 years through loves and losses, children, distance, and closeness, that remained true for us.
I am blessed to have had him as part of my life throughout these years, from waltzing with him in law school to many walks around Harvard Square and Tallahassee's Lake Ella, nights of music, dancing, and dinners wherever we happen to be in the US, intellectual discourse and debate, discussions of Judaism, meeting up for our children to play together, and countless hours sharing our deepest of truths and understandings over meals, on the phone, or at his home. He was my dear, beloved friend. I watched him grow and evolve over the years from a political philosopher and thinker whose photo could easily represent everything a Harvard student and future professor should be, to an even greater love of life with his boys. He seized every moment. He lived every moment. He took such joy in his family, his Jewish community, and his larger communities in the US, Canada, and around the world. He took joy in gatherings. He took joy in gathering his friends and meeting up with them during travels.
He took joy in his students and in his scholarly works. He loved to teach and shape young minds. He changed views on criminal justice through his confrontational conception of retribution and writings on shaming punishment and the death penalty, among others. Excuse me. In grossly simplified and imperfect terms, he believed that communication with the offender in the context of retributive punishment was necessary to avoid innocent people being shamed or punished, to fairly allow for explanation and understanding of violation of social expectations and legal norms, to affirm that the actor had free will. He believed in just retribution, not revenge, in the state being the actor to impartially provide justice, divorced from heightened emotion. He would not want anyone publicly ostracized, attacked, or shamed without knowing with certainty of their offense through a state process. Yes, Danny most assuredly would want justice, but only in that way. He would be angry and saddened that his boys will grow up without their Abba, and he would be heartbroken to see so many people torn in two from his loss. He would want us to ensure that his boys knew his heart and his beliefs. He would want us to treasure every single moment. He would love us to all grow and connect, to celebrate his life with joy the way he lived it, with food, song, dance, intellectual debate, and friendship. While none of us are ready yet, I pray that we will celebrate him that way in the future. Many of us want answers to help us transition to a path toward peace in his senseless loss. While we wait for justice, we think of what Danny would do. We lean on each other and we grieve.
His students, past and present, adored and loved him. His colleagues deeply respected, admired, and loved him. His family and extended family of friends loved him unconditionally for the unique, witty, brilliantly sarcastic, loving, affectionate, intelligent, sometimes goofy, empathetic, kind, adventurous soul that he was.
No combination of words, written or spoken, however eloquent, can fully capture Danny's spirit, can fully convey his passion for life, can adequately pay him full tribute. Danny gave a little bit of himself to everyone he touched, and his spirit is rising higher and higher, alive and well in Olam Haba, and in the hearts of all who knew and loved him, most especially his children and family. His legacy remains in them to hold dearly and let shine for the rest of the world to know him.
Dear friend to so many and to me, I love him always and I will miss him forever.
You can keep going.
Whether you knew him as Dan, Danny, Daniel, Bo, professor, colleague, friend, or family, his loss leaves a void that cannot be filled. Dan Markel was simply irreplaceable.
Okay. Thank you, Remy.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So I'm so glad this website is still up, justicefordan.com. And there are links here to a ton of other articles and writings, mostly from other law professors, other friends of Dan. So if you go to that website, you can click around and hopefully those links still work. So what do you think?
It's a lot. It's it's sad, but it's beautiful at the same time. I was trying to find something that really stuck out to me in one of these testimonials about him, about how no matter, I don't want to mess it up, but basically it was saying that the more struggle he was going through in his life, I assume regarding the divorce, the more he thought that meant he needed to improve himself in a spiritual way, and that he began really striving to try to rack his mind to, even be more spiritual and be a better person, it seems. And it's, it's tragic to imagine that that's what he, some part of him thought that, and yet the reality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember quite a while ago, sometime last year, Fancy Fiction, I'm pretty sure it was her, had posted an email that Dan had sent around to some of his closest friends, where he said that he was going to try to be better and, be the most menschiest person ever, or something to that effect in regards to this whole process of separation and divorce. So I thought that's a really, really nice thing to see from someone, basically expressing what their attitude was like towards their ex-spouse or soon-to-be former spouse.
Right. Well, yeah, it shows his character. I mean, he was always examining himself and wondering, he was like his biggest critic, never good enough, just always striving to be as best he possibly could,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's really nice to hear these words from his close friends about what kind of father he was, what kind of things he would do to help other people, how he would make people feel, so that there's not this total narrative of, oh, Dan Markel was a pompous jerk, because there very well could be people with that feeling, although I think some people later stated that it was probably wrong, that they had heard some rumors or heard maybe through Wendi or some other people that, he's this really god-awful person or, real full of himself and stuff.
Oh, Wendi took every possible opportunity to, throw him in the mud during the court proceedings, constantly saying that people thought that, she needed to be protected from him or something like that, or
Mm-hmm.
or throwing in things like it was the way he treated me. I mean, come on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Unfortunate. But getting Wendi out of our minds on because we're remembering Dan here, but I found exactly what it was. It just says it was by Rabbi Shul Robinson, and it said, "My heart broke over and over again as he revealed to me some of the struggles he was going through, and how he always felt that if only he showed more goodwill, more patience, all would be well." That's what I was thinking about.
Yeah.
That's powerful.
Yeah, it's interesting how the rabbi said a lot of kind of personal things or things about what I guess Dan had been talking to him about before he was murdered.
Right.
Yeah, I wonder how that rabbi feels now, if he's been keeping up with the case.
I would think so. I mean, can't imagine it's slipped his mind forever.
Yeah.
Especially since he was, Charlie was arrested. I think that got a new wave of reporting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Okay. Yeah, sorry, I haven't been paying attention to what's going on in chat. It looks like some people have been blocked or something. Yeah. Well, if anybody's saying really rude, obnoxious stuff, then the people who are moderators, please feel free to block them, because we don't need more people coming on to waste our time, just saying mean things. Yeah. So thank you, Helen. Yeah, we all need a Dan in our lives. Yeah. Well, I bet Wendi and Donna would totally disagree. But, yeah. Let's see. Wendi from the stand was repulsive, cheap shots about the father of her children, how she can sleep at night. Let's hope she's hearing footsteps. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Tara Kawas mentioned that too. Trying to get the jury on her side when she was defending Katie. Yeah. It's amazing to contrast the character of Dan versus Charlie. Dan Markel seems like a saint, both philosophical and ethical.
Right. Yeah, diametrically opposite.
Yeah. Dan Markel was such a beautiful soul. How heartbreaking for those two boys to not have their father. How those evil Adelsons could do that to the entire Markel family is disgusting. Okay. Thank you, Katie. Well, once again, it's not really new content because we're reading stuff that was mostly written back in 2014 by Dan's friends, but to a lot of people, it might be new information. Let's see. Okay. Yeah. Thank you guys for being here. Okay. So Sunny M is very angry, like a lot of us are. What a horrible, vile person Wendi Adelson is to take such a great father from those two boys. And again, just a disclaimer that Wendi has not been charged with any crime. So even though she's been named by the state as a co-conspirator along with her mother, Donna. Okay. So Reba says, many good men have fallen under her spell, as described by one of them. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Do I have reflux? No, I don't have reflux. I just feel my voice is totally failing me because I had to talk at work a lot today.
Yeah, it's a Friday.
And I ate some salty chips, so I probably shouldn't have eaten such salty food.
Judy just worked all week.
Yeah.
And you sound perfect.
Well, it could be better, but okay. A love of the present moment. That was Dan's world. This is heartbreaking. What tremendous loss for so many people. He gave so much to the world and made such a positive impact on the lives he touched. Thanks to Judy and Remy for reading us. Yeah, it's our pleasure to give a voice to Dan's side of the story and all his friends that, really loved him and felt that their lives were so enriched by knowing Dan Markel. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So what are your thoughts about the case these days, Remy?
I mean, we knew it was probably going to get delayed, right?
Yeah.
So that's probably not a big surprise, but they can take their time. We know Kappelman's ready. So they're just delaying the inevitable for Charlie.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is just more for Donna to have to worry about, I mean, that's like 600 more gallons of Pepto-Bismol she'll have to purchase over the next few months.
Yeah. I think she's probably beyond Pepto-Bismol because she was already taking real drugs, real medications to try to get herself to sleep. And did you hear that wiretap where Charlie was telling her to also take it with wine or alcohol? I'm like, what?
What a weird dynamic. And then she picks up the phone and again, Fancy Fiction's wiretap call, and just the sound of him like so pleased that she's very sedated. And of course, he's like patting himself on the back for getting her in that state. I mean, really. Yeah, that is a weird one for sure.
Yeah. I sure wouldn't take medical advice from Charlie, telling you to mix your prescription drugs with alcohol. What's he trying to do? Kill off mom so he can get the inheritance, Life insurance.
Rewriting medical charts.
Yeah.
Classy stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So, okay, well, of course, Sunny is itching and she wishes Donna would get arrested now to start her life sentence. Yeah. Yeah, at least it's a tiny bit of consolation to know that she was already having so much anxiety and physical symptoms 7 years ago, or 6.5 years ago. So, yeah. Did you have a chance to watch any of the other YouTube videos about the case recently, like the Surviving the Survivor or the Deep Dive True Crime videos?
I've seen, they're there, they're bookmarked. I watch the wiretaps on Fancy Fiction's page as they come in, but yeah, they're bookmarked. I will be some informative stuff, I assume.
Yeah. Well, Deep Dive True Crime recently put up the police interview with Shadrick Nobles. Remember that guy,
right. Yeah.
the drug dealer that Sigfredo and Lucas
sold them twice. Like he accommodated them both times they were up there, I think.
Yeah. Isn't that kind of a strange coincidence? I guess he always hung around that budget inn since he was homeless, I think. So, yeah.
I'll check that out for sure.
Oh yeah, it's definitely worth a watch. I was kind of surprised that he actually sounded pretty articulate and sort of educated the way he talked in the police interview.
Right.
And I'm just surprised that he would be willing to go with the police to just talk to them like that, because as far as I recall, he did have some sort of criminal background. So you would think that he would just be like, "What? I'm not going to the police station. What I do? I didn't do anything." Bye.
Right. Maybe they prefaced it by promising him they were going to play nice.
Yeah, like telling him it's not about you. You're not in trouble. We just need you to talk about a crime that happened where you might have.
Often.
Huh?
They certainly do that often.
Yeah, but you would think that, most people would be really reluctant to just be like, okay, these police officers could like trap me or arrest me or beat me up or something. But
for sure.
Yeah. So thank you, Shadrick, for going in and talking with them voluntarily.
I'll definitely check that out.
Yeah, and he actually had a pretty good memory because they talked to him back in January of 2016, and they're asking him about stuff that happened a year and a half previously. And so he remembered who they were. He picked out Lewis, maybe even Sigfredo, from a bunch of pictures that they showed him. And then he also remembered that thing about, the guys shooting up the car, and the car was broken down, and one of them said something about how why don't you call this woman to come help us, or whatever it was. That makes you wonder, what woman? Is it Wendi? Because Katie wasn't there.
Right. Well, we don't know, I guess, what circumstances led to him becoming homeless, or perhaps he sold the drugs but never partook in them, and just was a dealer only and was able to remain 100% cognizant of everything that was going on the whole time. And so he has all the details locked in his brain.
Oh, I'm sure I think he did do the drugs with them in that hotel room. So, yeah. So he was, so props to Shadrick for, despite being, somebody that was already probably caught up in the criminal justice system, being willing to go in and just sit there with the police and recount what he remembered about his dealings with Lewis and Sigfredo. Yeah.
The last few things I watched were something else, which was on the Mentor Lawyer YouTube. All the interrogations of those rednecks that were involved at that massacre at the lake, Frostproof, which is actually like an hour from where I live. But those rednecks that shot those boys in the middle of the night He's got all the interrogations on his channel.
What? I
They're
don't
like
know
living
I
off
don't
of
know anything about this.
Yeah.
What happened?
The Frostproof Florida murders.
Okay.
These seriously just trashy rednecks just tracked these boys down and shot them to death when they were trying to go fishing at nighttime. And yeah, so the interrogations of those involved, I believe, are on Mentor Lawyer's page. But yeah.
So what was the motive? They just wanted to shoot up some people?
I believe the motive was some drug-addled motive. I'm not even sure the motive made any logical sense. Something about the guy thought the other guy had his truck, some old truck. I mean, you know, I think the guy was like on meth when he was making these accusations, and then murdered them. So who knows what logic was going on in their brains for the motive, but I think it had something to do with a truck, which doesn't surprise me.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, it's after a while, it's so disturbing. It's like, I don't even really want to learn more about more criminal cases that have been going on, especially the really weird, heinous ones and, crimes against children. It's just like, oh my God, it's already bad enough that we're obsessed with the Dan Markel case and some other cases going on. But
it never ends.
Please stop. I can't take this. Give me something to be happy about regarding humanity.
Right.
Yeah, but getting back to the Markel case here. So thank you guys for making your comments. Harley says, I thought that was funny, Shadrick asking Katie's defense if he had ever seen crack cocaine being manufactured. Yeah, that was pretty funny too. Yeah, talking back to Christopher DeCoste. Yeah. So okay. What about did you see that African-American woman being interviewed also on Deep Dive True Crime? She had some sort of she had some very tangential connection to the Markel case. I guess she was probably with Shadrick or had been in there in the hotel room also doing drugs with them. Or I think there might have been some insinuation that, she would be paid, for certain services, which I probably can't discuss on YouTube. But anyway, yeah, so these are kind of like side issues, just like with that woman that worked at the law school in the administration office, where some people were like, what? Did she have an affair with Dan? Why are they talking with her?
Right. They're very peripheral.
Yeah, but it just shows that the law enforcement talked to a ton of people and they had to explore all the different potential avenues, wanting to see if he had enemies. Because I think that woman got on their radar because she had been searching in the property records online to look up Dan's house. Yeah. And she said something about how she and her husband were interested in buying a house or whatever. And, yeah. So, but it was interesting because she was the one that let it out saying that, that Dan might have been a pompous ASS, but, she didn't have any real information.
I saw that one. I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah. So.
But no, Wendi in her interrogation, of course, was throwing him under the bus left and right about being, scared of him physically.
Yeah, or like, Danny didn't treat me very well,
And I think Kappelman at one point may have said something along the lines of, is it your testimony now that you were physically abused? Like she hit her with something that direct, and of course she said no.
Yeah. So it's just really frustrating how this case is just dragging on, and you just want some closure for the Markel family.
But as long as it's done right, I guess we can keep waiting, even though it's going to near a decade soon.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll just wait, and hopefully at least we'll have another trial date scheduled soon, because I think the judge and the attorney should have already discussed it within the last week. Like what exactly is going to be the new trial date? So.
This year, though, at least. So.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, unless everybody suddenly came up with conflicts and couldn't make it in late September, and then Rashbaum has some family gathering October 14th. So then
breaks his other ankle.
Yeah, who knows? And then, of course, then there's going to be Thanksgiving later, and people usually don't like to schedule stuff for around Thanksgiving and the holiday season. Yeah. Okay, thank you for being here, Dawn. Also, she never misses an opportunity to throw dirt on Dan, even in her most recent testimony. Yeah, you would think by the next trial, if she has to testify, she should have some coaching on how to appear a little bit more credible and a little bit more sympathetic, since she likes to play victim, like take some lessons.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
Okay, Fancy says he was emotionally abusive, but I didn't tell a lot of people that, so most didn't know. Yeah, right. She was telling everybody all sorts of things about her side of the story. Yeah.
Especially probably Charlie. I mean, I'm assuming here, but
Yeah. Donna and Harvey. Yeah. Okay. Lacoste said Dan treated Wendi like a house slave. Yeah, but again, that was based on what Wendi had told him and the way Wendi would act around Dan and stuff. So
he trusted her. He did trust her.
yeah. Yeah. You mean Jeff?
Jeff Lacoste trusted her until the very end, where I guess he suspected she may have been cheating on him. He mentioned something along those lines. But besides that, yeah, it seems like they were he was so into her. I mean, he thought he was becoming the father figure in the lives of those boys. So yeah, I think he probably was trusting everything she said.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Fancy says, I'm emotionally abused by this harsh world every day. I would never marry someone I knew I didn't love, nor would I tell all our mutual friends I had cold feet. Come on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep,
well, Wendi was pretty young when they got married, right? She was still in law school. So I guess that's
her choice.
Yeah. I mean, it was still ultimately her choice, right?
Right.
Yeah, Jeffrey believed her to the end. Yeah, until he really was confronted with the facts. And I wonder when he actually saw Wendy's interrogation video too. I wonder when Mentor Lawyer put that out there, or it was publicly accessible and he saw it. Yeah, he must have like had his jaw hit the floor when he read her transcript or saw that video. Okay, like passion for her. Okay. Well, it's a little over an hour now, so I try to keep it no more than an hour. So do you have any other parting words you would like to say to our viewers?
Everybody be safe. We're coming up on a spring break. So, thanks for watching. Thanks for having me, Judy, of course, as always. And yeah, justice for Dan Markel. Glad we were able to spread the good vibes and for him.
Yes, exactly. It's always nice to find other writings and memories online. And of course, you saw a bunch of those links on the Justice for Dan website to even more essays and stuff. So again, I'd like to make a plug for Ruth Markel's book, The Unveiling. If you haven't read it already, you definitely got to get a copy or get the audio version. I think the ebook or the audio version might only be $9.99 on Amazon. So
nice.
Yeah. Did you read this book yet?
I have the hardback sitting with like 20 other books that have in queue to be read.
Okay.
Yes, I do have it.
Yeah, it's just so well written and has so much emotion and just a lot of I don't know. I mean, just so many details about not just Dan, but the whole entire case seen through Ruth's perspective. So I highly recommend everybody read Ruth Markel's book, Dan Markel's Mother. So hope you guys have a good weekend. And we're going to switch up the topics a little bit because Peacock TV has come out with a true crime documentary about the murder of one of my old friends, Robert Wone. He was a lawyer in D.C. He was 32 years old back in 2006 when he was found stabbed to death in a row house near DuPont Circle, well, kind of north of DuPont Circle. And it's just been this like horrible murder mystery because most people are very certain, including myself, that it was at least one or two, maybe all three of those men in the house that had a hand in assaulting Robert and stabbing him to death or covering things up, but nobody has been held accountable. So I was really happy to find out that Peacock TV is going to be showing this two-part documentary. It's called Who Killed Robert Wone? So you can see it already, but you have to actually have Peacock TV.
Yeah, it's a good service. I mean, they got a lot of good stuff on there, especially if you like the scarier type stuff. I've noticed.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe you should watch it. Yeah.
Chill. Definitely will.
Yeah, thanks to YouTube, the producers found me about a year and a half ago.
Nice.
So I gave them some information and some photos that I had of Robert, taught to them, and I went up there to Maryland to film a little bit of
Cool.
of the show, but of course, you know, I spoke to them for probably at least 2 to 3 hours, and then I only show up for about 2 seconds.
I would
But
always here.
yeah, but that's okay because, you know, I was like, "Oh my god, I look awful in this.
No.
Thank God they barely used my footage." But, yeah, but it's such a great documentary. They interviewed the big players in the case, which, well, it definitely focuses more on the legal aspect of the case, like Glenn
Okay.
Kirshner, the lead prosecutor. He features very heavily in the documentary. And then they also got Bernie Grimm, who is the defense attorney for one of the accused, as well as a couple of bloggers. So the 2 bloggers in that documentary are going to be my guests on Sunday.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I mean,
That's
I've been
awesome.
Facebook friends with them for many years, but I haven't talked to them since we went to the trial back in 2010. So, so it's kind of cool having this, getting to, you know, connect or reconnect with other people and, you know, other acquaintances slash friends and stuff. So the 2 guys are David Greer and Craig Brownstein, and they created the website whomurderedrobertwone.com. So that's the website. I'll
Good
put it
deal.
in the
I'll check
chat.
it out and I'll look for your 2-second scene.
Yeah, I think that they just wanted me to say like one sentence here and then another sentence there, and then that was it. And they also interviewed a bunch of other journalists, including like the Fox 5 newscaster and other, like Washingtonian Magazine, the Blade, people who had covered the whole murder case back in 2006 through, say, like 2011. And then after that, the news really died down. Hasn't been any news in the case for years. Yeah. So, okay. So I guess we'll say goodbye to everybody. Thank you guys for joining in, and hopefully you guys will also tune in on Sunday at 5 p.m. Eastern time to discuss the Robert Wone Peacock.
Thank you, everyone, for watching.
Yeah, thank you guys. I appreciate you guys being here. Okay, so Remy, hang on for a moment there. Thank you.
See ya.